Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. My name is Joseph, and this is a story I never thought I'd be telling. I was married to Barbara, my fiancée of 2 years. She was everything I thought I wanted in a wife, kind, supportive, and the person I imagined spending the rest of my life with. When we finally got married, I was at a crossroads in my life. I had been in the military for years, and while I took pride in my service, I knew deep down that I wanted something different. Something that would allow me to be home, to wake up next to my wife every morning instead of being deployed for months at a time. The idea of leaving the military was on my mind constantly, but there was one big problem. I had no idea what I would do next. I'd spent so many years as a soldier that civilian life felt like foreign territory. I thought about different options, maybe private security, maybe something completely unrelated to the military. But every time I tried to make a decision, I hit a wall. I wanted stability, but I also wanted purpose. And I didn't want to jump into something just because I was in a rush to leave. While I was still trying to figure it out, duty called again. I was deployed as part of a special forces team to assist in an operation overseas. It wasn't supposed to be a long mission, just a couple of months, I told myself. Just one last job, and then I'd be home for good. I reassured Barbara that this was temporary, that when I got back, I would finally leave the military, and we could start building the life we always talked about. She seemed to understand, though I could tell she wasn't happy about it. I promised her that this would be the last time she'd have to watch me walk out the door with a packed bag, wondering when or if I'd come back. At the time, I believed every word I said. But life has a way of throwing unexpected punches, and I had no idea that this deployment would change everything. They told us the mission would be straightforward. Get in, assist local forces, neutralize a threat, and get out. I didn't question it. After all, I'd done enough of these to know that straightforward in the military usually meant anything can happen. Everything happened fast. 1 minute we were clearing a compound, and the next an explosion rocked the entire area. I didn't even see what hit me. My body crashed against something hard. The impact knocked the wind out of me, but adrenaline kept me focused. I forced myself up, my ears ringing with my vision shaky. The fight wasn't over, so I pushed forward, ignoring everything else. At first, I thought I was fine, just rattled. I could breathe, I could move, and that was enough. But as the hours passed, something fell off. Every breath came with a sharp, stabbing sensation, like my ribs were lined with broken glass. I told myself it was nothing serious. But when even simple movements like turning, bending, and even laughing sent pain shooting through my chest, I knew I was in trouble. We didn't have access to proper medical facilities, just field medics with limited supplies. I was handed some painkillers, told to rest when I could, and that was it. So I kept moving, kept pushing like everything was fine. I called Barbara when I had the chance, but I never told her about the injury. What was the point? She couldn't do anything from where she was, and I knew how she worried. If I told her, she'd lose sleep, she'd stress. And for what? So I downplayed everything, kept the conversation light, and told her I missed her. She had no idea that, on the other end of the call, I was sitting in a makeshift barracks, forcing myself to breathe through the pain, counting down the days until I could go home. Eventually, my body made the decision for me. The pain didn't get better. It got worse even with the meds. They had no choice but to pull me from the field and send me back to the U.S. for proper treatment. But I had no idea that the worst pain was still ahead of me, and it had nothing to do with my ribs. When I finally got back to the U.S., the doctors confirmed what I had already suspected: cracked ribs and internal bruising. The pain had become a part of me, by then a dull, constant ache that flared up every time I moved too fast or took too deep a breath. They told me I was lucky. If the impact had been just a little harder, I could have suffered organ damage or a punctured lung. But luck didn't make it hurt any less. Every time I breathed, laughed, or even shifted in bed, it felt like someone was driving a screwdriver into my side. Despite all this, I kept the truth from Barbara. We talked regularly, and every time she asked how I was doing, I gave her the same answer: I'm fine, just tired. It was easier to just pretend. So I put on a strong voice, made jokes when I could, and assured her I'd be home soon. I could tell she missed me. She would always say things like, "I just want you back. I hate sleeping alone." I felt guilty for lying, but I figured it was temporary. Once I healed and got home, none of this would matter. Recovery was slow. The doctors prescribed pain meds, but I hated how they made me feel foggy, detached, so I took them only when the pain got unbearable. Instead, I focused on the breathing exercises they gave me, forcing myself to take slow, deep breaths, even when it felt like my ribs were about to snap in half. The first couple of weeks were the worst. Sleeping was nearly impossible, and I had to move like an old man just to get out of bed. But little by little, I got stronger. After a month, I could finally take a deep breath without wincing. The soreness was still there, but I could function again. That was good enough for me. When the doctors finally cleared me, they told me to take it easy and get some real rest at home. That sounded good on paper, but I knew myself. I wasn't the type to sit around and recover. I just wanted to go home and figure out my next steps. But instead of calling Barbara to tell her I was coming, I decided to surprise her. I imagined the look on her face when she saw me standing in front of her. She had been saying how much she missed me, how hard it was being alone. I figured surprising her would be the perfect way to make up for all the time apart. I had no idea that I was walking straight into a nightmare. I had been waiting for this moment for months, coming home and finally holding my wife again. But as I stepped through the front door, something felt off. Normally, if Barbara was home, the TV would be on, or music would be playing. But there was nothing. I closed the door behind me, listening. What I heard instead stopped me cold. It was faint at first, a soft moan. Then the unmistakable creak of our bed. My body tensed, my breath catching in my throat. Something was happening in that bedroom, and I was about to walk straight into it. I moved toward the door, my steps slow and controlled. When I pushed open the bedroom door, I saw Barbara, my wife, tangled in bed with another man. Barbara gasped, scrambling to pull the sheets over herself, while the guy, a stranger to me, fumbled, trying to cover his exposed body. "Don't move an inch before I use my gun," I commanded them. Barbara's breath hitched. The guy's face went pale. They obeyed instantly, frozen in place, terrified of what I might do. And for the first time in my life, I saw my wife look at me like I was a stranger, like she had no idea what I was capable of. I stood there for a moment, just staring at them. Then I instructed them to move to the living room. Now. And don't even think about putting anything on. Barbara let out a choked sob, her hands trembling as she clutched at the sheets. The man looked like he wanted to argue, possibly beg or explain, but one look at my face and he must have thought better of it. Slowly, they peeled themselves off the bed, eyes downcast, their movements stiff with humiliation. I followed them out. In the living room, they stood awkwardly, trying to cover themselves, but I wasn't about to let them hide from this. I pulled my phone out, flipped on the camera, and hit record. "Sit," I ordered. Barbara whimpered, fresh tears spilling down her face as she lowered herself onto the couch. The guy hesitated, his jaw tightening like he was about to protest. I took a step closer, my grip tightening on my phone, and his defiance crumbled. He sat, his shoulders hunched. "Let's start simple," I said, keeping my voice eerily calm. "Who the hell are you?" I'm Jason," he mumbled, barely above a whisper. "Jason who?" I pressed, tilting my head. "Jason Carter," he said, his voice shaking. I turned my gaze to Barbara. She wouldn't even look at me, her hands shaking as she wiped at her tear-streaked face. "How long?" I asked. She let out a broken sob. "Joseph, please." "How long?" She opened her mouth, hesitated, then dropped her head. Since we got married." The words hit harder than anything I've experienced. I let out a breath, my grip on the phone tightening. "So, this has been going on the entire time? The whole damn marriage?" Barbara was full-on sobbing now, her face crumpled in misery. "I'm so sorry," she choked out. "I didn't mean to, I swear. It was the devil, Joseph, I wasn't thinking." I laughed, shaking my head. "The devil," I repeated, staring at her like she was a stranger. "You really expect me to buy that?" Her cries got louder as she begged. But I wasn't interested in excuses. I wasn't interested in her crocodile tears. At that moment, there wasn't a single doubt in my mind. This marriage was over. There was no coming back from this. I wasn't interested in anything she had to say. I turned my attention to the man sitting beside her, the man who had been in my bed. My voice came out cold and firm. "Get out." He hesitated, probably hoping I would calm down or let him gather what little dignity he had left. But I wasn't in the mood for patience. My tone sharpened. I said, "Get out. Now." He scrambled to his feet, reaching down to grab his clothes from the floor, but before he could lift them, I stepped forward and barked, "No. Walk out as you are." Barbara gasped. "Joseph, please, just let him put something on." Her voice was desperate, shaking, but I didn't even glance at her. She had lost the right to ask anything of me. I kept my eyes locked on him. I don't want to repeat myself. He knew he had no choice. He could tell I wasn't bluffing. For a second, he looked at Barbara like she might save him, but she was just as powerless as he was now. Without another word, he moved. I followed him, keeping my phone steady as I recorded, making sure I captured every second of his walk of shame. He stepped outside and hesitated again, but I made a small gesture with my hand, silently telling him to keep going. He took off, breaking into a jog, then a full sprint. The sound of his bare feet slapping against the pavement, and I kept filming, tracking him as he disappeared down the road. Let them all see. He deserved every ounce of embarrassment that came with this. I lowered my phone and exhaled, but I didn't feel relief. There was still unfinished business inside. I turned and walked back into the house, ready to deal with the woman who had shattered everything we had. I walked back inside. Barbara had taken the opportunity to throw on some clothes, probably thinking it would make things easier. It didn't. Seeing her standing there didn't erase what I had just witnessed. She looked at me, eyes swollen from crying, mouth trembling like she wanted to say something but didn't know where to start. I didn't need her words. I took a deep breath, then spoke directly. "It's over." She started stepping toward me, hands reaching out. "Joseph, please," she sobbed. I wasn't thinking. I made a mistake. I love you, I swear." I held up a hand, stopping her right there. "You have two choices," I said. "Either you leave this house, or I will. But if I walk out, I'm done paying for this place, which means you're on your own." Her face crumpled. She knew exactly what that meant. We were renting, and the lease was in my name. Every bill, every expense, I covered it. If I left, she'd have to figure out how to keep a roof over her head. That wasn't my problem anymore. She broke down completely, dropping to her knees. "Please, baby. Please don't do this. I wasn't myself. I swear, I will do anything to fix this." I didn't waste my breath arguing. She was grasping at anything, hoping I'd take pity on her. But there was nothing left inside me for her to reach. I pulled out my phone, went straight to our family group chat, and uploaded the video for everyone to see. Then I left the group. I didn't need to see their reactions. Didn't care what they had to say. Not even a minute passed before Barbara's phone exploded with calls and messages. Her family had seen it. They were calling, texting, demanding answers. She fumbled with her phone, her voice breaking as she tried to explain herself. I didn't stick around to hear the excuses she fed them. My bag was still by the door where I had dropped it when I walked in. I picked it up, slung it over my shoulder, and walked out. Barbara's sobs echoed behind me, but I never looked back. A few weeks after I walked out that door, Barbara received the divorce papers. I knew the moment she saw them because my phone started ringing. First, it was her. Then her sister. Then a number I didn't recognize but could guess. I didn't answer any of them. I had made my decision the moment I caught her in that bed, and nothing was going to change it. There was no speech she could give, no amount of tears she could cry that would undo what I saw with my own eyes. Some things, once broken, can't be fixed. And trust? That's one of them. Barbara wasn't ready to let go so easily. She kept trying to talk me out of the divorce. First, it was the apologies, the same ones I'd already heard 100 times. Then came the excuses. She was lonely. She was weak. She wasn't thinking straight. The devil made her do it. I didn't respond. When that didn't work, she switched to bargaining. We could go to therapy. We could start fresh. She would do anything, everything, to make it right. But there was no right anymore. There was only the truth, and the truth was that I didn't want her. I didn't want to be in a marriage where I had to wonder who she was with when I wasn't home. I didn't want to live with the image of her and her ex burned into my mind every time I looked at her. I still plan to upload the video of that bastard running naked through the neighborhood. That video wasn't just proof of what happened. It was a reminder that I saw the truth with my own eyes. Once the divorce was finalized, I would post it. Let the world see the kind of man he was. Let him live with the same humiliation he had no problem letting me feel. As for me, I was still figuring things out. Before all this, I had been planning to leave the military, to settle down and start something new. But now I wasn't so sure. My future felt like a giant question mark. Everything I thought I was building had crumbled overnight. The military had its challenges, but at least I knew where I stood there. Out here, I didn't know anything anymore. One thing I did know was that I didn't trust love. Not anymore. I had faced danger, pain, and even death, but nothing had hurt me like this. A wound to the body heals. A wound to the soul? That one stays with you. Maybe one day I'd meet someone new. Maybe one day I'd feel something real again. But not now. Not anytime soon. Right now I was done. Done with love. Done with relationships. Done with opening myself up just to be torn apart. So that's my story. That's what happened. I don't tell it for sympathy. I don't need anyone to feel bad for me. I tell it because betrayal is real, and it can come from the person you least expect. If you were in my position, if you walked in and saw what I saw, what would you have done?